Awesome. So good to see everyone. I love all the faces of folks I know, all the people I don't know. I always like to keep scrolling and see all the folks that are here.
Almost 50 people in here. Wow.
I know.
Amazing.
Yay.
Hi, everybody.
So good to see everybody. All right. Well, everyone, thank you so much for joining us for Minnesota Prison Writing Workshop's February 2021 installment of the Before Time reading series to honor and celebrate Black Futures Month. My name is Erin Sharkey, and I'm a writer, a cultural producer, and an MPWW instructor. And I'll be your host for this evening. Before we get started, though, I just wanted to remind everyone that this reading is being recorded and will be posted onto our YouTube channel. So if you're feeling shy, please turn off your cameras and please remember to stay muted throughout the program. But we hope you'll stay until the end to send along cheers and words of encouragement and support to those who are watching on the inside. And to everyone watching this at a slightly later date, we are sending you all the good vibes through the ether, through time and space and bars. Before Time was inspired by our bi-monthly reading series with the Stillwater Prison Writers Collective. Since the in-person reading series is on hold indefinitely during the pandemic, we wanted to offer this monthly recorded event as a small offering to our students who we haven't seen since early March 2020. Before Time brings together local and national writers, as well as our instructors and mentors. In March, we will have another wonderful group of writers hosted by Michael Kleber-Diggs, so please stay tuned. Tonight, MPWW is delighted and honored to bring you 4 stunning writers for Black Futures Month: Omotara James, Douglas Kearney, Junauda Petrus-Nasah, and Kevin Reese. After each distinguished reader, we will have a quick chat, and then we'll end the evening with special messages from our amazing MPWW instructors, Chaun Webster, Michael Kleber-Diggs, and David Lawrence Grant. To kick off the evening, thanks to our friends at We Are All Criminals and our collaboration with the Scene Project, we are thrilled to feature our MPWW student, Vaughn. His first poem, A Cause for Celebration, was first published in Poetry magazine, along with our other student, David, and Vaughn's first piece closed out our Beyond Bars student reading in October. Vaughn is currently serving his 23rd year of a life sentence, locked up since he was 17. He is published with Poetry magazine, Midway Journal, By Strength, Cunning, or Charm, and From Inside Looking Out. He's co-editor of Hidden Casts, Exploring America's Vulnerable Classes, forthcoming from Coffee House Press.
This is LaVon Johnson, reciting the piece called A Cause for Celebration, a hanging in Northport, Alabama, 1897. Welcome to this joyful event. Boot heels thump to the pull strings of the fiddle. Spilled ale bridges the gaps between pale fingers as upturned jugs pass in celebration. The scent of wet leaves and raucous laughter fill my head. Am I alone? Or does the cold, wet ground under reserve these sounds for those who are one breath from its embrace? My chafed wrists are slit filling fast with rope fibers and warm blood. My throat burns in anticipation of the rope's turn to place its fingers around my neck. The slightest movement flakes the dry semen of my forearms. Look as they kick to the boot heels rhythm. I wish that was all they took. Flakes fall as the noose knot brings my ear to a searing hot. I am forced to stand upon unstable legs, replaying the look of my son's face as they did the same. He's 8. How can he feel shame? His 9 cries, the knot slides, and he begins to die. Gives me the strength not to beg. In nigger hanging, such a joyful event. So I smile. name is Vaughn. Langston Hughes said, "Hang yourself, poet, in your own words, otherwise you are already dead. When you allow someone else to paint your narrative, you are what they made you to be. When you have the opportunity to tell your story in your own words, authentic and sincere, you give someone the opportunity to truly hear you, to truly see you. I came through these doors as a child, literally. It's been 24 years since that child came through those doors, and I promise you, who I've grown to become is the man my mother dreamed I would be."
Thank you. Our first reader of the four here today is Omotara James. Omotara James is the author of Song of My Softening, forthcoming from Alice James Books in April 2022. She has been awarded fellowships from the New York Foundation of the Arts, Lambda Literary, and the Cave Canem Foundation. A recipient of the 92Y Discovery Poetry Prize, among numerous other awards, James is a visual artist, editor, and teacher of poetry in New York City. She believes that radical thought without radical action is dead. Omotara.
Well, hello. I have to say that movie that we all just saw and heard, it's like replaying in my head right now. I'm so happy to be here. And what I love about poetry is how there's all this conversation, you know, all this discourse, and we're all interrogating our own things, but we're also speaking to each other. You know, when you speak your fear, you're speaking into my fear. And so listening to Vaughn's words and then the words of Langston Hughes that he was reading, you know, I'm thinking about, you know, some themes in my work. I'm thinking about the difference between what you want and what you get, the distance between what is life and how you deal with life on life's terms versus how you create your own story and kind of craft that narrative. And so even though we might be talking about different things, we're talking about the same things. And so in the first poem I'm going to read, I was thinking about girlhood and what that even means as a construct. Like what is girlhood? When does my girlhood begin and when does it end? And who says? And is it fixed or is there a sliding scale? Like what's the spectrum? So I'm always thinking about that because I'm finding that I don't really have control or access to how the world defines me. So I'm always kind of investigating that. So the first poem I'm going to read is called Half Girl, Then Elegy. Having fallen while no one was looking, having borne what fell through, having fallen early, having barely fallen through myself, my luck so close to catching, having caught the worst of it, having fallen from the sky and then through it, having landed to realize I had been part, having parted the late sky, partly sky where I am delicate, I took a tumble through the night bloom. I took the night with me as I tumbled, delicate with the infinite, which swells from the tallest branch. Having grown swollen as low hanging fruit, I tell Nadra I couldn't help it. The fresh heave of new breast, the thick switch of hip, a group of unnamed gifts is called a steal. She says, fruit you can reach is still delicate. Her name means rare. Her lean thins towards the unusual. In Lagos, we name our girls darling, sincere, precious, because a name is a stake in the grave. Having grieved and taken on the way to Eros Thanatos, having arrived late to my own bloom. Have me like a walnut. Pry the part of me that is hollow from the part that yields fruit. I'm just going to read 2 more poems. So I wrote an ekphrastic poem. An ekphrastic poem is when you write a poem in response to a piece of art in a different genre outside of poetry. I wrote an ekphrastic poem for this photograph taken by the late Alvin Baltrop. And he was a gay Black photographer in the 70s and the 80s. And a lot of his photos capture gay culture. They capture the voyeurism of it. He took a lot of his photos on the Hudson River piers, and they were of naked sunbathers. They were of people engaging in sex acts. There were all kinds of sexuality and freedom and liberation. And this happened in that historical moment between the Stonewall riots, and the AIDS epidemic. It happened in that pocket. So I came across one photo at a retrospective of his work that was just stunning and true. And I felt like I was in that moment. And that's the great thing about photographs and photography. All of a sudden you're in a moment. And I was thinking, how can I replicate that, but also kind of travel through time? Because as soon as you stop looking at a photo, all of a sudden you're back to the present, right? So how can I kind of talk about that slippage through time? So the name of this poem is called Pier 52, after that photograph by Alvin Baltrop. He looks through the wound of my life like it's light. So I let him. The last cube of ice outside the tray where I found him, my lover, melts atop this brick as if it's our last whiskey together. His brown, more fragrant, more dangerous than whiskey. You couldn't miss him. Nothing lasts of promise. Such is the promise of light. Not even day breaks between us. Black joy cresting over and over the summer sun, kept a spiral of his hair in a box like a favor. His favorite pair of sneakers, the taste of his lips where we first kissed, where we first blissed. I couldn't, though I tried to keep him. Wouldn't keep, still nor true. Keep up, how could he keep me when he refused to keep time? Didn't keep in compliments. Was I supposed to keep sweet? Look, we discovered day like it was fire, flesh like empire, touch like bloodlight. Yes, count me down like a missile. As of tomorrow and the day after, as of this darkening gelatin and silver, as of the moon and the monsoon rain, as of these piers, as of America and all its splendor, as of the alleyway and the archive, as of this f-stop and this fuck and the next, as of this click and shudder, as of the daffodil and every queer thing that obliterates winter. And I'm just gonna read one last poem. So I'm not really one for labels, but I have a lot of them. I'm Black, I'm fat, I'm African, I'm queer, I'm an immigrant. And what I love about the poems that I return to is that they make space for who I am. And I don't think a poem has to be universal to do that. I think it can be really specific, but it's telling a truth. So, you know, that's what I try to do with my poems. I try to tell a truth and not apologize for it, because I don't apologize for my life. So this is a poem I wrote, another ekphrastic poem I wrote for Sugar McDaniel, who takes these beautiful portraits of fat people. And the hashtag that they use, if you look online for these portraits, is hashtag bodies like oceans. So if after this, this reading, you have an occasion to go online and search for Alvin Baltrop's work and Suge McDaniel's work, I'll see if I can link them in the chat. Bodies like oceans. Spare me your thin tidings. Bring round your unsolicited fats, your baby fat, your tired fat, fat of the evening tide, fat of the early worm. Bring me that stubborn belly, fat of the unspoken, underserved, and unrequited, pocked, puckered, and long pummeled, fat on fat on fat, fat. Flesh that responds to touch, jiggles at the suggestion, a provocation of fat tested to withstand the fallow ire. Please don't mention the tensile tenure. Long live the cross-legged splendor of fat privilege. Oh, slender stride, whom do you comfort with your ease? Whose borders drape across your back? Clawed my way out of your clean love and into the world's fat shine, world that works to burn me. I stay alive and well, rounded at every corner. Keep your thin spectacle, your airy hula hoop, fat of the forgotten republic. I lift you out of the shade. Let your contours spill over with light. I offer not the lemon, but the sour grove as heaven. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much. Wow, wow, wow. Sour Grove as heaven. Thank you. All right, our next reader is Douglas Kearney. Douglas Kearney has published 6 books, including the award-winning poetry collection Buck Studies with Fence Books in 2016, as well as numerous librettis and literary criticism. His newest collection of poems, Show, is forthcoming with Wave Books in 2021. A live album, Fodder, including Kearney and frequent collaborator Val Inc., will also be out on phonograph editions later this year. A Whiting Writers and Foundation for Contemporary Arts Cy Trombley awardee with residencies and fellowships from Cave Canem, the Rauschenberg Foundation, and others. Kearney teaches creative writing at the University of Minnesota here in the Twin Cities. Douglas.
Thank you so much, Erin and Omotara. Damn. You know, I'm gonna read a couple of different things, but you inspired me to read an ekphrastic poem, so I'm gonna start with that. And I mean, one of the things I think is so beautiful about ekphrastic work is it allows you to take up a piece of art that you love and to not only be inspired by it, but to examine it in a completely different way. And there's a piece of music that I love. It's an entire song, of course. It's The Emotions, The Best of My Love. There's the moment toward the end when everybody's together, building up towards this one moment. And it's when they all go, ow! And it's just like they sound anyway. So, so this is a poem called Ow. And it's written for my dear friend, the brilliant Tisa Bryant. And I think it also vibes off of the theme of Black futures. Ow for Tisa Bryant. When I go via the emotions chromey, ow, my spine antennas over to its kind of siren. Their ow, a beacon species, a dead stick space freighter jammed in raw cosmos, pings it out yon the Black unlimited. A million parsecs ascended. Call myself keyed to the code. Jackpot chime tolling all the deep monies. Their owl defibrillates, catches me walking my cardboard sleep, that keen, unlikely, hard leisure. I mean, to get to rigorous understanding. When my mind isn't a box, isn't assorted pins, don't know from their sound as mine by birth, I work it, at it, I'm a student, avid to it, my spine cantilevers, pelvic anchor, my head cut loose to the shoots of their high suddenness. I come to get my head around what I'm in. It goes up, up, it goes up, I'm clutching its string along. When I go, that ow, because it hurts doing miracle business. That ow, because Black women out there named to 24-karat drudge said it hurts in the industry of miracles. That ow, because ecstatic agon, what it is a skin full of stars, so pinched divinity. I opened my mouth, a bootlegged falsetto bid for dubious trinity, a chord I go courting dissonance by way of my striving, a sable note up yonder, Black as an afro's liquid core. I'm coughing up wax. I'm coughing up feathers, green seawater. Their luminously dark disk belting my glinting sub-terra ache. Repeat. Thank y'all. This next poem, right? Do it. And it comes right after that. Oh, ow, right?
Yeah. Everybody should be out right now.
Why is this not happening?
Future.
Right?
Ow! Ow! Alone. I'm all up in your reading. Let me listen.
No, it's all right. It's all right. You know, this is how it would be in the before times, right? This is how it would be in the before times. There's all the silence during a reading. So I appreciate you. All right. This next poem is called Show. It's the title poem from this book. And what I wanted to say about this poem is, people write in poetic forms, all the time, but people forget that all those poetic forms that we are told are this is what true poetry were. At some point, that was just some motherfucker making some shit up. And then like these forms that we're like, yo, that's the form. Nah, at some point, there are some forms that the different performers basically made to one up each other. They were like, oh, okay, well, you got that little ballad, but let me give you a sestina. You got to change the order of all the words as they go, and it's 39 lines long, all that kind of stuff. So this is a poem written in a form that a student of mine invented. The form is called a torsion, and the student's name is Indigo Weller. And the poem Show is just about what it is to perform and to have to be what other people impose on you in that act of performance. Show. Some need some body or more to ape sweat on some sight. Bloody pearl or dirty spit, hocked up for to show who gets eaten. Rig, body up, bow, bow, to breeze a lazed jig and sway to Grig's good fiddling. Pine deep, dusk, a spot where stood body. Thus they clap when I mount bonk, jig up the lectern, bow to say it's all good. We gathered, withstood the bends of dives deeper, darker. They clap as I get down. Sweat highlights my body. How meats dyed bloody. Look fresher for showing. I got deep, spit out my mouth. A gin red rind, bloody melon, ha! No sweat, choking, nobody knows the trouble, rig full Odeus, show, why fix this mess, spit in tragedy's good eye. This one's called Jigger Gogglers, then bow, housefully, they clap, be misunderstood. Hang notes high or deep, make my tongue a bow. What's the gift? My good song box? The gift! Jiggle nickels from deep down my craw. They clap, ah, so jolly. Stood on that bank, body picked over blood, Rato, Braxton sweat, brow syndrome, spit out a sax bell, rig, negrocious show of feels. For show, sweat equals work, bloody ink pot of body. I stay nib-dip, show never run dry, rigorously I spit, outstretched feet, lines jig, ha, 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 good one that I is, bow, deep but not out, stood, shining dim, they clap, waves slapping hulls, deep, don't mean sunken, goods, not yummy, right? Bow, blanch with foam, jigs. This one's called, they clap. Barrow, so much deep ends upon dead, stood I on that bloody rise of sweet body. There you is too. Sweat it lets. They clap, right? Some ask post, spit, toe lipped. I said show.
Damn.
You did that, man.
Well, thank you. Thank y'all. All right, I'm gonna fade out with one more. I think that'll be good. I appreciate y'all. Woo! All right, so on the subject of futures, Black futures, I'm gonna close with this poem called Afrofuturism. And what I always trip off about this poem, I think about, the idea of Afrofuturism is the radical idea that Black people should have a future, right? And so, that's something interesting. So this poem is kind of all over the page, so you might see me doing strange stuff, but that's all good. Afrofuturism. Rockets, 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 moonshots, rockets, moonshots, rockets, moonshots, rockets, rock, 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 rocket, rock, rock, rocket, rock. Take me to, 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 your leader, take me to, your leader, take me to, 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 take me, won't you let me take you on a cruise? Rockets, rockets, moonshots, rockets, so far ahead, it's behind us. Moses told her ray gun saying, Moonwalker, get disintegrated. Rockets, take me to, take me to, take me to, rockets, rockets, take me to, take rockets, rockets, rockets. Pharaohs go far away, oh, no riding place down there. Thrones thrown up like they just don't care. Rockets, take me to, take me to, take me to. What our antenna said, we was bugged. So us eyed the light up to light out. Hold up the place, blacked up, so blacks out this terror. Oh, great getting up, launching. Space-suited queens in foil to fly. Flight-suited kings sky around shining. Zip, zip, zip off the planetation. Beyond the stairs to nigger heaven. Rockets, take me to, rockets. Take me to, take me to, take me to, take me to, take moonshots. It's an escape craft from now and then by way of then and soon. Rockets, rockets. Who you calling Buck Rogers? Rockets, rockets. Astro Sheen, bing. Remy Martian, bing. Cadillac, no. Cadillactic, no. Spacey Adams, rockets. Are we there yet? Are we yet? Are we there? Are there we there yet? Are we here yet there? There. Ooh-wee, NASA been good to us. Doggone it, I'm serious. Moonshots, who you calling Starbuck? Yeah. It's the where, the when we go, when the call gets no response. Do you read? Over. Rockets, pilot, rockets, pilot, rockets, pilot, rockets, pilot, rockets, pilot. Thank you.
Wow. It takes my breath away almost. Can count on you, Douglas, for a ride. I appreciate it. Whew. Thank you. All right, our next reader, if you're ready, is Junauda Petrus-Nasah.
Junauda!
I've never met her before. Just kidding. All right, let me do her bio. Junauda Petrus-Nasah is a writer, a soul sweetener, runaway witch, and a multi-dimensional performance artist of Black Caribbean descent, born and working on Dakota land in Minneapolis. She employs poetics, the erotic, and experiences remembered via ancestral dreaming within her writing. She's written for the stage and wrote and directed Sweetness of Wild, an experimental episodic film project inspired by wildness, queerness, Black diasporic futurism, ancestral healing, sweetness, shimmer, and liberation. She is the co-founder of a performance collective, Free Black Dirt, with me, Erin Sharkey. Her writing can be found in several anthologies, and her first young adult novel, The Stars and the Blackness Between Them, received a Coretta Scott King Honor Award and was a Minnesota Book Award finalist. She is currently writing her second YA novel, Black Circus, and is a recipient of the 2021 Jerome Hill Foundation in Literature.
Wow.
Junauda.
Did someone edit my bio for me? Because this feels like recent. Rocket.
I did. I'm sorry.
You did? Oh my God.
Yeah, congratulations. I just saw you the other day. Yeah, I had to. Okay, bye.
I was like, oh shit. I was like, when did I do this? Okay, so Doug, it's like I'm still vibing off of you, and Omotara, I'm still vibing off of you. So I'm just gonna vibe. And when you started saying rockets, moonshots, spend it on the have-nots, money, we make it before we see it. You take it. Oh, holla, the way they do my life. Yes. So y'all, Black futures, man, we just got a bebop, skit, scat, dee dat off of everything. And just like the ekphrastic poem, like just vibed you into your ekphrastic poem. When you started saying rockets. So anywho, thank y'all so much. Like y'all, thank y'all so much. We all here, we all alive, we all together. We all breathing, we in the Black futures. There are Black futures, we are the Black future. We hold the Black future. We insist on Black futures. And we practice Black futures. This is a practice of Black future. And I'm just so grateful to the Minnesota Prison Writers Workshop for giving space for Black futures, even in these spaces where they say there's no Black future. So I just give so much thanks for these spaces on Zoom, in quarantines, across time zones, with family of all dimensions, you know, to really just insist, yes, Black futures and rockets. So I'm going to read some stuff for y'all. I have a young adult book, which to me has been my practice of Black future, getting to connect with young people all the time, not just around writing and, you know, reading in the book, but also around their sensuality, their pleasure, thinking around astrology and spirit and all of these ways that we're insisting on Black futures through creating it and making it. So yes, I wanted to share some pieces from my work in my book. And I'm just gonna start off with the poem that begins the book, the prologue. That to me feels very Black futures. We outsmarted oblivion 7 times in a row and made it look like jazz with no chains, like shaking our butt with no shame. We moonwalked past the ghosts of this living world. We decided to free ourselves out of the estranged strangling of this reality. We swan dived and centered in our magic. We found an eternal life that couldn't understand prisons or any other enslavement. We was not at the frequency that could catch or contort our souls. It wasn't easy, but destiny is destiny. Our bodies, levitated by the stardust of the ancestors in our bones, our ecstasy got divined in limitless existence. This is how we figured it out. Heard on an echo of a breeze in a playground somewhere in the future where kids is feeling free and they double dutching, singing, gardening, and twerking in the radiance of their ancestors' laughter. That's the first little song. So let me tell y'all a little bit about the book. So when I'm, sharing these next two pieces, you know where it's landing. So the book is called The Stars and the Blackness Between Them. And it's about two girls, one from Trinidad, who gets sent to live in Minneapolis with her Black American father when she's discovered with her lover from church, this other girl. And she comes to Minneapolis and befriends this other young woman who's also got like these sort of, hippie Black parents, and she's, coming of age and figuring herself out. And she, starts connecting with this young woman as she also finds out she has a serious illness that's kind of mysterious. And as she's kind of dealing with this existential reality of her body and this change, she stumbles upon this book called The Stars and the Blackness Between Them. Yes, it's a book within a book. And in the book, it's written by a man who's on death row, who's an astrologer, who, really speaks existentially and spiritually about life. And I feel like so grateful to have had all of the ways that like Black futures have been relayed to me in this world through people who've, been writers and thinkers and philosophers who've been incarcerated, who've been freedom fighters, as well as, all the ways that like spirit and spirituality and Black, thinkers have influenced me and politicized me. So a lot of this book is shaped from that. But these two characters are, sort of the streamline. So the part I'm gonna read next comes from the character Afua, who's got the book within the book. And he's just writing about his life growing up in Harlem. And it starts off like this. Ancestor Song for the Brokenhearted. As a kid, I wanted to be an astronaut. My mom, dad, brothers, and I used to go to the top of our apartment building on 143rd Street and look through a big telescope that my dad found at a pawn shop downtown. On a clear night, our family would take this telescope, our dinner, and a boombox up to the roof, and we would take turns looking at the stars and planets and moon while we listened to tapes by Smokey Robinson, Shaka Khan, Earth, Wind and Fire, John Coltrane, and others. I used to love it so much, I never wanted to go back inside. I was so obsessed, my mom got me a book all about astronauts in space, planets and stars for my 9th birthday. In the book, I was inspired seeing the women and men of NASA in orange jumpsuits hover in tight and orderly space. They would travel in space capsules and shuttles with dials, buttons, and levers that they knew how to use to command the travel of these vessels through the last frontier. They would watch our planet Earth floating in the distance, suspended in an expanse of quiet Blackness. Our planet seemed inherently gentle when viewed from space, a rounded, smooth, and simple Eden, innocently hovering in galactic murkiness. Maybe as a kid, I subconsciously thought distance would make the heart grow fonder of the life I had, the reality of our planet. My hood would get fuzzier and more tender the more distant I got in my spaceship. Home on Earth was Harlem, glory of creative Blackness and revolution that in the 70s and 80s of my childhood became depressed and embattled, transformed from a tight community of Black folks into a province of suffering under broken dreams and high unemployment. Many of our families were susceptible to the escape, violence, and enterprise of crack cocaine, and my dad devastatingly succumbed to this addiction. My mom, brothers, and I were drained in the mayhem of his jonesing. Stuff we loved, including the telescope, disappeared, and his gentle nature mutated into the anxiety of addiction. I saw my mom try to love and be united with the man who was shackled to his own destruction. My brothers and I all coped in our own way. I mainly escaped to the streets and to my best friend James's house. But more than one thing can be true. In all of the heavy, I still remember times when my dad would be clean and home would be a place that was filled with the love of our parents and the cacophony of our joy and laughter. I understood from an early age that people have many sides and aspects to them. And as I have grown older, I have been grateful for astrology and helping me love and see my dad and mom in their complexity and cosmology. On death row, in some ways, I feel like I did become the astronaut of my childhood aspirations. I live suspended, distant, and hyper-aware of all existence. I'm alien yet affiliated, living like a satellite away from all that I have ever known. I know more about human life now that I've moved my research on planetary existence from the streets of Harlem and Philadelphia to my Spartan spaceship of four cement walls, steel commode, and a cot. The space travelers of my felonious legion are drafted from our streets, vulnerable and afraid, some innocent, some guilty, all trained and broken in this system. We are sensitive scientists of the soul who stumble into a laboratory of the self. We can't figure out how to escape. We spend our days rereading our star maps, trying to understand how we ended up in this unintended destination. The solitude of these walls allows us the time to explore the vastness inside of us in ways that our survival on planet Earth never could. I don't glorify this irony. One thing I learned in the book my mom got me is that by the time you see a star's light shining bright, it could be dead already. Its brightness, a remnant of ancient creation. The star is the bright pinprick of heaven shining through darkness, an imploding message sent from a burning ancestor. Its illumination offers an arrangement of meaning from the sky. Sometimes I think this is astrology, wisdom from our ancestors, the stars. That's that little piece.
Yay, thank you, Junauda.
Can I do one more, or do you not have time for me? Yes.
Sue says yes. So Sue's
she
the
told
boss.
me how much time I had, so I was thinking about the time I had. See, this is hard when your work wife is like the MC of an event. You feel like you get treated differently, and you almost feel like you can't say anything. You feel like you must suffer in silence in public.
Yeah, it's abuse. I'm sorry.
Okay. So thinking of ancestors, an ancestor that has been coming to me again lately, and she's a big part of this book, is Whitney Houston. Do I got any Whitney Houston fans in the house? You know, don't
Whitney!
Yeah.
Whitney! I wanna love somebody, so you gonna sing that too?
Listen, we can sing it together, Kevin. Say nothing but a Black karaoke moment so far. So Rockets. So this is this Black karaoke. Okay, that might be something. So this is just talking a little bit about Whitney, and like thinking about Whitney and her Black future, because I do think our ancestors allow us to live our futures, you know, and like create space for us. And so anyways, here's a little piece in my book. One of the characters, Mabel, is very obsessed with Whitney Houston, and she's 16, and here's her talking about it. I'm trying to sleep and I can't sleep. My belly hurts and my hips too. All I can do is lie in bed and think of young Whitney Houston from the 80s. I have her album Whitney next to my bed. I found it at the thrift store last week when I was there with my mom, and I've been sleeping next to Whitney every night ever since. My mom thinks it's cute since Whitney was her idol growing up, and she was inspired by her singing and style and stuff, but I feel like Whitney and I are connected on a whole other level. When my mom and I would play the greatest hits and dance to I Wanna Dance with Somebody, at the part when Whitney says, don't you wanna dance, say you wanna dance, don't you wanna dance? My mom would pull my dad in. He would do his reliable and raggedy two-step, thinking he's killing the game, and she would be in her intricate Afro-modern hip-hop choreography, which is basically a lot of shoulder shimmying, lyric dancing, and old lady twerking. I mean, my mom can dance though, for real. She could always get my dad to just let go and be goofy. Anyway, I'm up staring at my ceiling and my memories and my feels as usual, listening to my quiet storm mix, as my dad calls it. It's all emo and soft music. And soon I'm thinking of Whitney and her fine self from back in the day. She just had a lot of layers to her, which is a thing I think I like in people, like Ursa and Jazzy. Even Terrell has layers. I like that sometimes Whitney was graceful and poised like a church lady, but then she was also kind of wild and cray and straight hood too. I'm like that. I got a lot of layers, but I think other kids think I'm just this whatever tomboy Black girl who always reading and playing ball or working out or something. If I'm honest, a part of my renewed curiosity is because recently I found out Whitney Houston fell in love with this other girl, Robin, when they was teens and working a summer job in New Jersey. I was just looking stuff up online and found some things about her rumored romance with her basketball player best friend, Robin. I don't know, but it just seems cool to know that she had this connection with this other girl and that the other girl was a beautiful basketball star and Whitney fell for her butt, called her the sister she never had. I feel like I've felt that way before with my best friend, Ursa, and also this other girl, Jada from math. I read that when Whitney hit it big, Robin was her for real ride or die, that she became Whitney's assistant and her confidant and always had her back. They shared a huge apartment and was bad and beautiful and living that good life together. When I listened to I Want to Dance with Somebody after reading more about their connection, I imagine Whitney and Robin slow dancing in an icy and lit penthouse in the 80s, and it's all back in the day fresh. There are two Black girls slow dancing, teen twin flames who loved each other, inseparable. I feel it. Anyway, some people deny it, but when I look at pictures of young Robin and Whitney and how they was smiling and close, a part of me thinks it's true. I just do. I can totally see why Whitney loved her. She's cool, smooth, more swag than any of these cheesy Jerry curl dudes probably trying to push up on her. I also read that one time Robin also maybe whooped Bobby Brown's butt. I want to be like that. Smooth like Robin, just a tender thug that Whitney would love. Maybe Robin was her true love, and I wish they could have stayed together. Maybe the world would have loved her if she was queer. I would have, no doubt. Whitney was an angel, and what if Robin could have been her bodyguard? Why did that basic white boy Kevin Costner with no swag have to save her? It should have been Robin's cool self. Ain't Black women always saving everything anyway? Why can't we save Whitney? Thank y'all. Kisses. Black futures. Kevin, I'm handing it to you.
I go first. I go next.
Sorry. Wow. You would have never done that to Douglas, and you would have never done that to Omotara, Kevin. Just so.
No,
it's cool. That's great. I need a breath after you anyway. So thank you, Erin.
I'll introduce you, Kevin. That's my best friend, Junauda. So good. Thank you for sharing all those things. Okay, I'll read Kevin's bio. Here it goes. Kevin Reese grew up in Minneapolis, Minnesota. He spent 14 years incarcerated inside the criminal justice system. Kevin is the founder of Until We Are All Free, which is a grassroots group of directly impacted criminal justice experts whose mission is to abolish mass incarceration and find the answers to a true transformative criminal justice overhaul. He is currently the director of criminal justice at Voices for Racial Justice, where he leads the work connecting behind the walls urgency to the front lines of criminal justice reform movement. He is a 2018 AWP Intro Journals Project Award winner for poetry published in Hayden Ferry's Review. Currently, he can be found in the Twin Cities, smiling at the sun, or traveling all over, smiling at that sun. Here's my friend, Kevin.
Thank you for the warm introduction. First, I just want to give space to all the amazing artists who went before me. Thank y'all for blessing and this graceful space. Bless all of your heart. I was reminded that I'm an artist sitting here, right? I've been sitting here organizing and dealing with the man all day, and just sitting here with the rest of you beautiful people. It reminded me of why I'm an artist. These poems that I want to share tonight is, I told Jen this, that I have a collection of poetry that I'm excited. I'm getting ready to release them. at first I used to say I wrote poems because it allowed me to say the stuff I wanted to say. But like I recently realized that a lot of my poems, it gave me space to say the things I needed to say, right? That's what poetry is for me. It was a space where I could do that. So I'm gonna share a couple poems with y'all tonight, from this collection of poetry. Let's rock. The first poem is titled The Many Marys and Pauls. My whole life, I have glared across at Mary, waiting for her to tell me what Paul said. I would sit there, my grandma's kin, Black and respectful. Each time, Mary smiled and took my respect for her inheritance. I grew poor. Each time, Paul took my Blackness for his inheritance. I grew hateful. This has been my whole life. I watched in agony as Paul and the Night Riders galloped away with my youth. Mary said it was for my own good and that my youth was nothing but trouble. Once every summer, I receive an unmarked postcard. I suspect it's from my youth. They would tie my hands and throw corn at my feet while screaming, "Eat, boy, eat." I guess one day I'll be free when Paul and Mary grow conscious, or I get rid of mine. That was a poem that it felt really good to write it, right? That was an experience for me, like in the system coming up, just my whole life, like of the system. It's always been these people that was able to look at me and tell me, oh, it's not me that's about to do this horrible thing to you. This is a horrible thing that's about to happen to you, kid, I know, but it's not me. They sent me, right? Institutional racism is what I later learned that it was. And that was a poem that gave me the space to like write it and be able to reflect on it. Thank y'all. The next poem that I'm gonna read is titled Black Fist and Cold Concrete. I recently realized one of my favorite ancestors is Tupac, right? He's such a part of me. He's such a part of my generation. I tell everyone, and the older I get, the more I realize it. Like, nah, man, a lot of my principles still to this day is like stuff I heard Tupac say in my CD player when I was a shorty, like ride my bike to school. Like I still be standing on that. He the first person that kind of gave me pride that I was Black, like that I was a Black man and that it meant something. And it meant that I was precious, but it's also meant that I was vulnerable. Like the first place that I learned that at, he gave me the lens to kind of understand the world that I was coming into. I understood why at 10 years old, I can get stopped and frisked by the police, or why I didn't feel fully connected with what I was witnessing in school or experiencing in school versus what I experienced at home. Like I ride my bike between school and home, listening to Tupac. It'll help me like bridge the gap between those two worlds. So in this Black History Month, can't say it enough. Blessings to our ancestors, Tupac. Without further ado, Black Fist and Cold Concrete. Tupac said it. He was the soundtrack that spurred my determination to conquer my adolescence, rising through handcuffs, fighting against the darkness, wrapped inside of a cocoon with a lining as cold as last night. Still forges with my imagination, forges with my appetite, until still becomes my contemplations. See, my destiny is ancestral. So when the moment comes, you can find me with my back against the concrete and my Black fist up to guard my chin. Again, I gotta give space back to the amazing artists though, who like went before me. Thank y'all all so much for blessing this space, that allowed me to share what I wrote, which I consider sacred. And I'm super excited to share this collection of poetry with the world. They're no longer my poems. I gotta give them up. I've been sitting with them for a while. They talk to me.
Yo.
Thank you, Kevin. Thanks so much.
Man, please, one more if you're down. One more.
Yeah. Do you have another one?
Always got another one.
Yeah, please, bust one more,
okay.
Cam.
Let's do it.
Bust it.
This next poem is called Certain Days, an ode to the number 19. like the number 19 always showed up real eerily in my world, in my life. I know so many significant people in my life birthday, like the 19th of the month. The day my case happened was on the 19th of the month. I wasn't getting out until 2019, right? For like 14 and a half years, 2019 was the year circled on my calendar. I remember when I was 19, it was such a time in my life. It's a part of me that's still 19, y'all, like, because I went away when I was 18 years old, and I like sat in the county jail. I was in the county jail during my 19th year. When I got out, of course, my apartment was 219, the apartment that I moved into. So certain days, my ode to the number 19. Certain days have significance, coincidence, and dreadful arrivals. The marks of paradigms, shifts all around me. On these days, I remember what it was like when I was 19, the place I was, and the places I wanted to be. Certain days are like silk, uninterrupted and divine. And some days are just the opposite. On these days, I think of my father and what parables got buried with him that would make it easier to understand what it means to be me. Certain days, sleep is gentle and all my dreams seem true. Then there are days that snakes slither along my bedpost, searching for my eggs to eat. On these days, I think of my son and his precious black skin and how I must protect his inheritance. Certain days, I just want to read and plant trees in Liberia and maybe eat dinner off the ocean's floor. And some days, I just want to stay, to fight, to fight, and to fight. And on these days, I remember my name and where I'm from and what I've been called here to do. Thank you.
The snakes on the bedpost.
Ow.
Thank y'all all so much.
Man, thank you.
Mhm.
Ooh, thank you for reading another
Thank
one.
you, Kevin.
Absolutely. It's a Liberian church next to my office. If y'all can hear, they really over here, they holding service tonight.
Oh,
And
Yeah.
Yeah, I was hearing that. I was like,
told them,
yeah.
like, I'm kind of recording. They like, okay, brother. They over there. So bless their hearts too. They're like, they really over here. It's a Liberian church next to me.
Man,
I love it. Thank you
Yeah,
so
they
much.
doing choir rehearsal.
hey, that's beautiful, man.
Yeah. All right, y'all. Whew. What amazing offerings we had. What a great, great collection of ideas, of images, of words, of sounds. Yeah, such a blessing and such a picture of Black futures. I get the honor of asking a question. I couldn't ask just one because that's how I am. So I'm asking two questions of the readers. And these are the two questions. I suppose you can answer one and not the other, but I'm curious. What was an early experience where you learned that language had power? And how do you balance making demands on the reader while taking care of the reader? And I think, Kevin, can you go first?
Great question. In the courtroom, right? The tricky language of the law. When I in the courtroom, when they was telling me these words that was finna tell me what they was finna do with my body. So that's when I figured that, like, you know, language is really powerful and tricky. So that was the first time that I found myself actually looking at words, and particularly the way that this law, right? It's just words. People, like, we're talking about poems earlier. These are just words that people interpreted. And on the back end of this, there's this one key major thing on the back of it, is that they were talking about someone's body, their life. And people get to interpret words and, like, over someone's body. So for me, it was my experiences, particularly in courtrooms. Still can't go into a courtroom, don't want no smoke with a courtroom. Since the last time I left one, I don't know the next time I go in one for the rest of my life. It did something to me. The next thing, by just letting the poem write itself, I think, or whatever I'm writing, allow it to write itself. So that way me and the reader can experience it together. And if it's scary, then we were scared together. So it's a journey that, like, we'll go on together by writing it uninhibited, just let it be what it would be. So that's kind of how I kind of do it, to try to take care of me and the reader.
Thank you, Kevin. Yeah, I appreciate those answers. Junauda, you're next.
I think for me with words, yeah, I think for me, like I would just love poetry and books from since I was really young. Like it really was my escape from just, sad feelings, being lonely as a kid or what have you. And I remember like my first Valentine in kindergarten and somebody giving me a Valentine that said, roses are red, violets are blue, sugar is sweet, and so are you. And I was like, roses are red, violets, I don't know what those are. And I'm sweet, and yeah, sugar sweet. Like to me, I was just like, that was the first time I'd ever like heard a poem. And I was just like, whoa, this third grader just got like bars. So I think like that for me, really, there's just so many ways that like language sparked me. My dad was a musician, my mom, yeah. So let me not even get up into words. Me love words like this, son. And what else? As far as the reader, for me, like I gotta just be truthful with life and like tell the stories that are for me to tell. But like I do use poetry to soften things. I do use sweet moments and like, language that really loves and lives in the body. I think is how I care for readers. But I certainly don't like, I guess I do sugarcoat shit for readers, but I keep it real, I keep it raw, and I let it be known what the things I feel like I need to share, so yeah, that's my answer, friend.
Thanks, Junauda. Douglas.
Yeah, much respect to the answers that have already been given, and as people have been putting up in the chat, like the fact that language can allow somebody to live or instruct that they will die. And that's a powerful thing. And yeah, thinking about that is just heavy. Thank you, Kevin. In for me, one of the first times I really understood that language itself had power was when I heard a kid, I guess I was in 4th grade, and they were on the playground at my elementary school, and they said, and the beat's so funky like a great big monkey, and it tastes so good like an almond joy. And I thought he made that up, right? I was like, oh wow, that's wild. And then I found out that was like the Fat Boys, and Prince Markie D just died, so respect to that. But I was like, wait, so this thing that sounds like a kid made it up could also become like not the same music I'd always heard before, but like this completely different thing. And that was when like that was when I was like, okay, so just language, no notes, just language and the rhythm of language had power. And so that stayed with me for a long time. And the balance of making demands on the reader with taking care of the reader. Like, I don't know that I always take care of the reader. I have children and I love them dearly, but if I want to protect them from everything, but I also know that if they don't touch something hot and burn themselves, or they don't run and trip and stumble sometimes, that they're not gonna be like people. They're not gonna be able to have empathy towards other people's pain if they don't experience some kind of pain. Now it happens that, and many people on this call know this, it just happens that children that look like my children seem to have received a whole bunch of other motherfuckers' share of the pain, right? So I don't say this lightly, but I guess what I would say to a reader is I love my children, and I know that sometimes pain that they can experience will help them. I love my children. I haven't met all of my readers.
Thank you. Okay, Omotara, you get to close us out.
Oh, listen, you picked the wrong one to close y'all out. Well, I think that for me, I've lived outside the power of language for a long time. I came from a household, very like busy immigrant parents who, it was better, the better, the less said, children are, what's that expression? Children are to be seen and not heard. So I didn't really make that connection to my agency and my language for a while. And I remember, so I feel like it's something that I'm still learning over and over again, like the power of language, both the power and kind of the paucity, how language can fail. I feel like every day, I'm a Pisces, I'm brand new. Like every day the pain is new. But I do have a memory of being in third grade. And so I went to this like really small, like hippy dippy primary school, Quaker school. And, they didn't give you homework. It was choose your own adventure. What you wanted to learn, that's what you're going to learn that day. I don't know what they were thinking, but it was great. So we didn't have like show and tell, but at the beginning of every day, I guess today you would call it mindfulness, when we had amazing, really compassionate people who were our teachers, and they would gather us in a room, and they would check in just to see what was going on, like how you were doing. So that idea of, sitting around and checking in, like that was anathema to me. I didn't have that. Like we didn't sit around the dinner table at home. Like we didn't, we were separate. So that idea of checking in was new. And there was this one day that this little girl who I was just like, I was like enamored with her. She and I was in third grade, and she came in and she was teary-eyed. I'll never forget it. That day, Jennifer Porter. Oh, I just said her full name. I guess you can edit that out. It doesn't matter. She came in and told us that the day before, her parents had told her that she was adopted, and she was really emotional about it. And I was emotional for her, and I wanted to do something. I didn't know what to do. So then after like that sharing circle and everything, I went to the library and I was just looking at books. It's all in the same room. It's like a farmhouse. It's a really small school. So I'm at the library, and I come across, like amazing, I come across this anthology, this poetry anthology written by children. And I'm like, written by children? And next to every poem is the age of the child who wrote the poem. And this is blowing my mind. I'm like, children are writing poems? And I see a poem that a little girl wrote about being adopted. And I think, God is using me today. So I give this poem to Jennifer, and I'm like, and I give it to her, and she reads it. And as she starts to read it, I can see her just kind of like calming down. And I'm making these connections. I didn't have the language, but I'm seeing that she's identifying. And this poem is written by someone that she never met, but they have something in common. They have a shared experience. So that idea that language can communicate a shared experience, that became like very holy to me, and as a way to kind of like heal people. So that was one of the first ways that I really saw the power, the restorative power of language. And in terms of the poems that I write, and I guess I'm still trying to do that for myself. I'm not trying to heal anyone else. I'm trying to like heal my own wounds and understand them and critique them. And that's what I'm learning about language. But I think that I've heard this expression that any expectation is a premeditated resentment, right? So when I think about the reader, long after I've written the poem, I don't think about necessarily what they're going to get from the poem, what their expectation might be. I take care of them by just listening, like putting my ear to the ground and just really listening to what I see, like my own experience. I'm trying to listen and give them the truth of my experience. And I feel like that's all I can do. I can't expect them to say, yeah, I felt this way, because I feel like that breeds inauthenticity, and then I'm performing. And it's like, I don't want to perform in that way. Like, you know, we all are doing so much performing. Like, let's just like sit and talk. And what I loved about this reading is just, I felt like so present, you know, I felt like I was just listening to all of you read your poems. And I mean, your stories are my story, and things that I will never experience at the same time. And that's just, I mean, that's why I'm here. That's why I'm doing it. So.
Thank you so much. Thank you for all that wisdom and insight. I appreciate how you answered those questions. Thank you so much to all of you. Now we're going to move into what is one of my favorite parts of these readings. It's an opportunity for some of our instructors to speak directly to our students and to share a short message or lesson or writing prompt. And up first today is Chaun Webster.
Hello. Thank you, everyone who shared this evening. This was an amazing evening. I had my camera off for most of it because my kids were curled up watching. Actually, also as y'all were reading. So, yeah, we all enjoyed it over here, and just I have, you know, really just a short something to share. Wade in the water, wade in the water, children. Wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water. In the water, gonna wade, gonna trouble, gonna children in the water, gonna water, gonna wade, gonna gods in the water, children wade, children water, children gods in the water, trouble wade, trouble children, trouble gods in the water, God's trouble in the water, God's children wade in the water, trouble, gonna water the waiting children of God, gonna trouble the children waiting, gonna water the children in God's water in the water, children's water, gonna trouble the trouble in the water. The waiting children are finished waiting in the trouble in the water. The waiting children gonna trouble the gods. Thank you.
Thank you, Chaun. All right, thank you so much. All right, our next message comes from Michael Kleber-Diggs.
Thank you so much. I'm not going to sing. I'm not good at singing or technology. But I wanted to share a prompt. For me, sometimes it's helpful to get back to basics. And if you're a new writer or an experienced writer and you just want to spend some time at the writing desk, stretching or doing calisthenics or dribbling with your opposite hand for a little while to just sharpen the tools in your toolbox, one of the things you can do is go back to early exercises. And it sounds like a simple prompt, but I have a poem to share where I think it also allows for a lot of opportunity. And that is just write a poem focused on color. I was thinking about pieces that meant a lot to me and Afrofuturism. And I've been reading a lot of poems from African-American poetry, 250 years of struggle and song, edited by Kevin Young, who's from Kansas, like I am. And spending a lot of time with the canon and really enjoying it. And I was so thrilled to see that one of my favorite poets, Cameron Awkward Rich, has a poem in here. And their poem makes such smart use of color. And it just reminded me if transcendent talent can work with color, so can early talent and emerging talent and mid-career talent. So my prompt is to work with color and think about Cameron Awkward Rich and their poem, Cento, between the ending and the end. Sometimes you don't die when you're supposed to. And now I have a choice. Repair a world or build a new one inside my body. A white door opens into a place queerly brimming, gold light, so velvet gold. It is like the world hasn't happened. When I call out, all my friends are there. Everyone we love is still alive, gathered at the lakeside like constellations. My honeyed kin, honeyed light beneath the sky, a garden blue stalks, white buds, the moon's marble glow, the fire distant and flickering. The body whole, bright winged, brimming with the hours of the day, beautiful, nameless planet. Oh, friends, my friends, bloom how you must, wild, until we are free.
Thank you. Thank you so much. All right, our last message of the evening will come from David Lawrence Grant. Take it away. You're muted.
Okay, now we're good. Yeah, thank you, everyone. Man, the work that was read tonight was so transcendent. Read, sung, performed. It's a beautiful, beautiful night. So thank you for hosting me and my Frederick Douglass COVID hair. Y'all get the hair for free. I'm going to read an excerpt from this piece by Anthony Ray Hinton, who spent 30 years of his life on Alabama's death row for something he did not do. And there's some reflections on that 30 years that he wrote and that I wanted to share with you tonight. Freedom is a funny thing. I have my freedom, but in some ways, I'm still locked down on the road. I know what day they're serving fish for dinner. I know when it's visiting day and at what point the guys are walking in the yard. My mind goes back there every single day. And I realize it was easier for my mind to leave the road when I was inside than it is now that I'm free. The first time I felt rain on my skin, I wept. I hadn't felt the rain in 30 years. Now when it rains, I rush into it like a crazy man. Rain has a beauty I never knew until it was gone. I walk every morning, 3 miles, 4 miles, 5 miles, as long as I want and as far as I want. I walk because I can walk. That also has a beauty I never saw before. I carry scars that only my closest friends can really see. I document every day of my life. I get receipts. I purposely walk in front of security cameras. I don't like to stay at home alone for too long without calling a few people to tell them what I'm doing. I always call someone and say goodnight. It's not that I'm lonely or that I'm afraid to be alone. In many ways, I prefer to be alone. I create an alibi for every single day of my life. I live in fear that this could happen again. I look for purpose in losing 30 years of my life. I try to make meaning out of something so wrong and so senseless. We all do. We have to find ways to recover after bad things happen. We have to make every ending be a happy ending. Every single one of us wants to matter. We want our lives and our stories and the choices we made or didn't make to matter. Death Row taught me that it all matters. How we live matters. Do we choose to love or do we choose to hate? Do we help or do we harm? Because there's no way to know the exact second of your life when your life changes forever. You can only begin to know that moment by looking in the rearview mirror. And I know with this horrible, incredibly crazy 2020 freshly behind us in the rearview mirror, a whole lot of us are struggling to figure out, well, where are the silver linings and some of this madness that we all went through during the collective grief that we shared in 2020? And I hope that as you reflect back on that yourself and all these many, many months that we haven't been able to be in the institutions with you, delivering the teaching that we love to do face to face, we've had to settle for the stuff being on screen, which all feels so abstract. Except us folk, right? We find a way to make it feel like we're still in your face for real, even though it's just 2 dimensions on the screen. So I just ask you to reflect a little bit on 2020 and think about the things that maybe a year from now we'll be able to look back on as gifts, right? We had a chance to figure some stuff out that we hadn't figured out before. And hopefully, as we move into the beautiful futures that we are going to create for ourselves, see, we can take that with us and share it with somebody else and maybe lift their burden a little as we walk. Because you know what the old folks say? They say, sometimes we got to make the road by walking. Cool thing is we're going to make this walk together. So I'm looking forward to every step of the way and to sharing with y'all. So thank you for your time and attention tonight. And thank you for all this beautiful work, all of y'all who read. I feel lifted and fed, you know, for real.
Thank you so much, David. What an awesome way to end the evening. I want to echo your well wishes and your love that you're sending to our students. We want desperately to get back in there with y'all. And so we know we're thinking about you. And I want to let all you feel the abundance and love and all the things that are happening in this room. So I would invite anyone that's on this call right now to take your microphone and turn it on. And we're gonna whoop and holler for how great this reading was. Thank you so much.
Thank you, MPWW.
Love to all mine. Y'all know what's up. Salute.
Hi, Kevin.
Hey.
Hope they don't edit it too much.
Thank you, Omotara, for joining us from New York.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Round of applause for all her work coordinating this reading.
Yes,
Yay.
thank you so much.
Thank you, Doug. Thank you, MKD Davis, Chaun, Kevin, Omotara, Junauda, Erin. Woo!
Where's the after party at?
Wherever you are, Junauda.
I know.
Salute to all the MPWW home team. Salute to everybody. Love y'all.
Salute.
And we miss all of our students.
Oh, church seems like we're at the church right by your place. It seems like it's.
No, they over there. They ain't playing. They told me.
Shout out to everybody.
They told me to be there. I respected what they were saying.
Oh, Vito.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you, everybody. Good night.
Thank you, Vaughn, for setting it off.
Yes, Vaughn.
That's awesome. Great job.
Thank you, Vaughn.
Thank you.
Thanks, Erin.
Have a good night, y'all. Thanks, y'all.
Night.
Bye. Woo!